Recording.
Hey guys, welcome back to this podcast that still doesn't have a name. Uh, I'm here with the lovely Aaron, and
Oh,
this week
thank
I
you.
tasked him with watching the movie Tenet, which I love. It's a great Christopher
Oh.
Nolan movie. And let's just get into it. What are some of your thoughts on it?
Well, when I got Tenet on Voodoo, it was, this is has to be a joke. 69% Rotten Tomato score. Is it? I think might be the lowest so far of the movies we've done.
Maybe it was a pretty decisive movie, or like it's like a pretty split movie. I feel.
Divisive. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first thing I noticed is trademark Christopher Nolan movie. I will say that of the ones I've seen. And I mean, I've only seen a majority of Inception, great movie. Dark Knight trilogy, the first two are amazing. And I've seen Interstellar, and now I've seen Tenet.
Oh, you haven't seen Oppenheimer?
No, I have not.
Hmm.
I went and saw Barbie instead because I'm a real man. I'm a real man's man.
Yup.
We saw it together.
Yup.
Um, I'm gonna say two overarching parts of this just off the start before we even get into this movie. I saw two huge influences on this movie, and you may disagree with me. One, I feel like is obviously James Bond because Christopher Nolan loves James Bond and he loves On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the only film with model George Lazenby, and at the time it was hated and it became beloved. And I find similarities in it because I think the protagonist, I believe the actor's name is John David Washington.
Yes.
He looks the part, handsome, in shape, great in the action scenes, just like George Lazenby. But I find his acting a bit wooden. Do you disagree or agree with that?
I think he does a great job in acting. I do see where you can say it does seem a bit James Bondish because yeah, I can sense that. I mean, between him and Robert Pattinson, you see why people would like say it has James Bond-esque feel, especially with like the villain being like a Russian guy
Yeah, a
and
very
stuff.
stereotypical
Yeah,
bomb about to blow up the world.
yeah.
Also, the just a fun fact, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Mr. Kick-Ass himself, is in this movie, who is one of the favorites to be the next James Bond.
Oh,
And Robert Pattinson is also a favorite. But the other influence, and I know this is going to be funny because I kept writing down notes on the side in my little columns of my paper here. Harry Potter.
okay.
And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Well, first of all, it's a lot of English actors in this movie. And you have Robert Pattinson, who played Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter. You have the lady, the scientist girl at the beginning. I forget the actress's name. I'm too lazy to look it up. She plays Fleur Latour, the super attractive one that everyone loves. And Gilderoy, Kenneth Branagh, great actor who plays Andreas, or is it Andre? Okay, I'm trying to remember now. Andre or Andreas? I think it's Andre. But he played Gilderoy Lockhart. And the whole inverted thing, they go back in time to, to switch things, and they like, you see it at the beginning of the movie, and you kind of are confused, like, why is that random blowing up car there? Why is the gun flying back? Why is there bullet holes? It's like in The Prisoner of Azkaban when Harry, Hermione, and Ron go back in time to save the bird, the big buckwheat or whatever it is. And I like you see like rocks being thrown in certain events that you like when you first watch it, and you're like, what is going on? And then they show the whole sequence. So I was like, whoa, kind of very Harry Potter-ish.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, especially with I can see the last part, yes, but I just think it's a British movie, so that's why they have
That's true.
British actors.
That's a good point. I mean, the Harry Potter movies have legitimately every like British
There's
famous British
yeah,
actor.
there's not but almost every big actor today played in Harry Potter if they're British.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Also, I thought it was interesting because every time they said, as soon as they brought up invert world or whatever it is, how everything is inverted, I'm like, if you do Tenet inverted, it's still Tenet.
Yes,
I
same
thought that was
forward as
smart.
it is backwards.
So I thought that was quite a clever thing. And overall, amazing cinematography. You know how Christopher Nolan is. It's always amazing. So I will get into the start of my notes. Okay, beginning shootout at a big concert opera thing. Everyone dies. So my thing is they killed everyone in there, right? And it gives me very Dark Knight vibes of like the break-ins, like in Dark Knight Rises and the Dark Knight of when like, Joker does the bank robbery, very same vibes, music, coming guns a-blazing, and also when Bane storms the stock market exchange and like shooting everyone. Gave me that vibe. And also the quote, which is funny and hilarious, they keep saying to each other their code is we live in a twilight world. That had to have been on purpose.
Uh-huh.
Good old Robert Pattinson. So, and then I wrote, they just murdered hundreds and hundreds of people in this concert. How is how is how is this like not a big major news story? You know what I mean? It's like never brought up again that everyone in that concert just got massacred.
I think it's kind of like one of those like cliche be because it's uh like in all those action movies, so many deaths and things happen, but like it's never really like a news story because it's like sort of like they're in like the secretive world, and it's not like the world where it's just random people. Like these are all like the wealthy and like they're at like a very like prestigious event.
I know that's what I'm thinking. It's like if they kill hundreds, possibly thousands of people in this giant concert hall of the wealthy and elite, how does it go like super unnoticed?
I'm not sure, but yeah, that's a good point. I think it's not something that's really thought about.
Yeah.
So I guess.
And then the other code name they keep saying is No Friends at Dusk. And then what's his name gets caught. The protagonist, we don't know he's the protagonist yet, but he gets caught. He cyanide pills himself because the guy in front of him is either trying to give it to himself or give it to him. He looks like he's honestly at first it looked like he's trying to cut himself out, get free, and then he takes it. And then we cut to black. He's in a hospital essentially. He's getting sliced up in the mouth. His jaw is getting eviscerated in torture. He's already been beat up. He's like got blood eyes. And all of a sudden they just go, we reconstructed your jaw and fixed everything. You're all good now. And the
Ye-
cyanide pill was not real. So how did
Uh,
they get him? You know what I'm
how
saying? I'm just
how did
so
what do you
confused.
mean? How did they get him?
Because like he's getting tortured by the people that caught him, the bad guys.
Yeah,
And he is presumed, I guess, he kills himself while they're like, oh
yeah.
shit, he got a cyanide pill. How does the CIA, who it appears he's working for, get him from these terrorists? And he's on a train track.
Oh, well, they probably picked him up in like it probably wasn't a cyanide pill, but it was full of like a chemical that makes it seem as though you died. So that guy probably thought, oh, he just killed himself. Time to go.
Yeah, they just leave him there. They don't like try to hide it. And the other
Uh,
guy's still alive in front of him that was in the chair.
listen, man, it's a movie. The
I
cops aren't that
look,
good.
I know, but if we're gonna be critical, but it's Christopher Nolan movie, you got to be like overly critical of his. But I'm just like, this is parts that don't make sense to me. And then
Uh-huh.
they fly. They got windmills in the middle of the ocean. That's pretty cool. And he climbs up ridiculously high and is just doing pull-ups and push-ups and immediately becomes jacked and healed again. So I was like, they giving him tren, they giving him HGH, some testosterone. How does that boy go from being like skinny and starved to tortured and all this stuff, beat up, to just sitting there on a
Yep.
windmill in the middle of the ocean?
It's the all fish diet.
Okay, I guess so, maybe. That is high
It's real
protein.
jacked.
And I'm just like, I don't understand why he climbs that high for pull-ups and how he's all of a sudden like okay after he gets his jaw sliced up, takes a pill that fucks him up. I don't know. And then he meets a scientist that talk about time traveling fusion bullets made from the future, and they're trying to invert everything, this Russian group. And then he meets Robert Pattinson, and they're like, they got to break into this lady's house, and guide, question them, find out information, and they do bungee jumping, which is very James Bond, GoldenEye, to escape, or and to break in. Uh, and then Sanjay, who the husband, the wife, I can't remember her name, is like, tenets are very important to my Sanjay. He never breaks them. And then they have to find the Russian oligarch, and they're brokering someone from the future with this Russian oligarch. Then we're transported to the obligatory Michael Caine appearance in a Christopher Nolan film. You know, he just gives more information, big exposition scene, and it is hilarious to me at the end when he goes, "It was nice meeting you, Sir Michael," which is hilarious because Michael Caine is a sir. And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny. That's
Hmm.
good little that's a good little touch." So he meets Kat, very tall wife of Andre.
Uh-huh.
Does and then get a bunch of exposition between them. She's like, "Oh, he cheated on me. He was that's a fake piece of art you have. It's worth 9 million. He was cheated out of this $9 million, and he controls her with the art." She says it's been vanished. So he brings that information back to Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
Oh wait, before that, the part that's so weird to me is like, he's like, "Oh, I want you to see your friend get beat up by all these guys." And there's like four, five guys, six guys there,
Yeah.
and they have his hand down, pinned. They've punched him quite a few times and beat him up already. And then all five guys that are four guys, I think, are sitting in the kitchen surrounding him, and he just somehow is able to beat them up, but I'll get past it. It's a movie. James Bond does
I'll
it.
take him on.
That's what I was saying. I was like, this is James Bond, where he's in a room, an inescapable situation, but he
But he
somehow gets
somehow
out of it.
escapes.
Yeah, so I was like, that's very James Bond. And then we go to Robert Pattinson. They start planning this airport explosion to break into the vault and get this art.
Yes. Well,
And what
I mean the art, yeah, but it's kind of like this is like an important place because you'll probably get to it. It's like one of the passageways.
yeah, Robert's doing his fake uh he's going in there to basically check everything out and figure out how he's gonna, how to break in. And it's just when he gets that contact, the Indian fella that I don't even remember his name. It's like, where does he find him? And then he has a bunch of contacts, and it's like it's not kind of explained why they have these contacts and why they're willing to just, like, oh yeah, we can. It's bold for us to just blow up a plane and crash it into a vault. I don't know. It gets really confusing. And then so they do it, which has very Casino Royale James Bond vibes of where they at an airport has to break into it, stop a where he's stopping an airplane from exploding into the airport. This one is exploding into the airport. They get in, big inversion fight with these two guys. Robert Pattinson catches one, takes off his mask, and just kind of lets him go. And then he comes back, big fight, inversion fly out, which the action is amazing. I'll always give Chris that. The action is quite great. It is great. And I just kind of wrote down like during that fight, and like it kind of got me Inception vibes of the, twisting room. And I was just like, inverted time gun shit is getting really confusing. And also, I was like, when they're breaking it onto like sneaking into the plane and everything, they're all just knocking the fuck out of everyone, like punching them, knocking them out, chloroforming one, knocking them out. And I'm like, with all the stuff that they're doing, once these guys wake up, they'll have a recollection of who just knocked them out and they're screwed, but that never happens.
Uh-huh.
Then all that happens, it's stuff's already gone. They need plutonium 241. They need help to steal it. Then we go back to the wife again. She tries to kill him by throwing Andres off the little boat, little
The little
parasailing
Yahtzee.
trip. Yeah, little parasailing thing they're doing. And then what's his name? The protagonist saves him and he's like, I owe a debt to you. Then he gives him an exposition about how he was from that town referenced earlier in the Mooning movie where whiskey's going
Bumblebee.
get to my head. Um he's from that random town that was built that Michael Caine talked about where a warhead blew it up and they had to look for the warhead and the plutonium. And he just happened to be the one that found it. And then protagonist sneaks onto that boat while Andreas is, well, not sneaks on, he's sneaking around it, spying on Andre, getting this shipment of gold, plutonium, I guess, as he beats a man to death with it. And I'm like, how does one sneak around this boat? Like, it's kind of small. They've already heard stuff, but
Because he's James Bond, bro.
it's true he is. And then Kenneth Branagh, Andres, acting when he's mad, it's like his Russian accent gets horrible. And he's just like, if nobody can have you, if I can't have you, nobody can. And he's like kicking her. He's like, ah. It's hilarious. It's really cringy, his acting when he's getting mad as a Russian.
Yeah.
Because it's like Russian accents kind of slipping and it's quite bad. And then we get to that big highway robbery where they go over there and they use a fire truck trying to get the plutonium. And my thought was is like you can clearly tell in some scenes, which I get it. It's going way slower than normal traffic would, but also it's just like empty. There's no other cars around except for a random police car that shows up at the end, just happens to.
Oh, yeah, because they're on the highway in Europe. They're not in America.
That's true. I guess all the highways are empty except for the other way. And then also, I thought it was a really dumb part is he has her tied up in the car with him, Andreas, and he's like, he's counting down from three. I'm gonna kill her. So the protagonist is like, no, she's super important to me. I'm in love with her. He doesn't know her. She's been married to an arms dealer for years, who's like way older than her. Don't get it. Why is he all of a sudden in love with this woman? They barely know each other. He throws the thing to him, and then they abandon her in the car. And the car, they get out of the car, and it still continues to go at full speed in reverse, straight, which I guess is the inverted thing. But I was just like,
Yes.
the physics of it doesn't make sense because even if they leave the car, shouldn't it start turning? Like if I let go of my steering wheel when I'm going full speed,
Because
That shit's gonna swerve
they
and then
went to
run into a
discount
wall.
tire and they got their tires aligned.
They got a good ass alignment.
Yeah.
So they save her, bring her back into this inverted thing, and then she gets shot in the stomach. And John again is like, I gotta risk the entire world's being because I'm in love with her. Goes into the inverted, starts a whole mess there. But I guess it's already meant to be, which Robert Pattinson knows because he knows all the inverted stuff. But essentially, from that point on, they keep going in the invert world, trying to go back and stop Andres, and then you see where all the random shit occurred earlier in the movie, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why that car exploded because protagonist was going back trying to get the formula for the bomb. Then you find out why they were in the mask and why Robert Pattinson left the guy because it was the protagonist from the future or
Yep.
past, whatever you want to call it. They have the big fight, big explosions. They save the day, and for some reason, Mr. Wooden acting is head over heels for this woman who fell in love with the world's biggest arms dealer.
Really ain't really caught up on this.
Yeah. I like that's my whole thing is like my whole overarching thing is I have no attachment to this woman. I don't feel bad for her. It's like they try to be like, "Oh, she's so abused." And yeah, he threatens to, never does. And she's like, "He stole my son away from me." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sucks, but your acting doesn't really convince me that I should feel sad for you." She's like, "Oh, we used to be so madly in love while he was still the world's most dangerous and killer arms dealer." She's like, "Oh, he was just an arms dealer. Now it's gone too far." And I'm like, I don't really feel sympathy for this woman. She's in love with an arms dealer that was killing people and supplying all these drug organizations with guns or whatever it is. So I'm just like, I never feel sympathy. I don't buy that the protagonist is in love with her. I don't know. I just don't know how to feel about this movie. You give me your thoughts.
Well, I think it's like Interstellar. It's like Inception. I wouldn't say it's like Oppenheimer, but it's one of those movies where you can just rewatch it and rewatch it, and every time you rewatch it, you find something new, and it's just keep unlocking more and more things. And it's a movie that I wouldn't say relies mostly on the characters as much as it relies on the storytelling. And it's the story and the plot that drives the movie more than like the depth of the characters.
Okay.
Because like you're right, like why should we care about her? Like that doesn't really matter. It's like her role that she's playing that more matters at that point in time.
Yeah, but like half the stuff at the beginning, you feel like you don't need her anymore. He's got the information, he's got to Andres. It's like he doesn't really need her anymore. He's just risking the world to try to save her. It's not until the end where you realize she has to make sure he doesn't kill himself, which she ends up killing him. So it's like, what was the point of that whole like, oh, make sure he doesn't kill himself?
Yeah. I mean, do you know one of like the Easter eggs that like people believe? Do you know how
No.
like she's like, do you know who they believe her son is?
Well, Robert Pattinson, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh,
and he's from the future.
that's maybe, but we witness him die, and
Do
then
you witness him die?
we don't witness him. We see his dead body.
Do you?
Yes, we do.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when they're trying to break in and Aaron Taylor Johnson gets shot, then inverts back, gets shot in the face again, still somehow survives both times he's shot. I guess invert. I don't know. They talk about how horrible and painful that invert thing is. When she gets shot in the stomach, they're like, she's gonna die because the inverse bullet's so horrible.
Yeah.
And then they risk everything to save her. But it's just I was gonna say the opposite of what you said. To me, this doesn't feel like Inception. This doesn't feel like American Psycho. This doesn't feel like Interstellar, where the more I watch it, the more I'm gonna find stuff that I'm gonna like. This one I just like I don't know if I can sit through it to try to figure this out every time. Because the
I've
inversion,
watched it 5 or 6 times and I've found more things every time I've watched it.
you're crazy. I mean, I could be wrong. I could rewatch it and it grows on me. But out of all the Christopher Nolan movies I've seen, this is my least favorite out of the ones I've seen. And I wasn't the hugest fan of The Dark Knight Rises. There's some big plot holes and stuff going on in that one. But
I I like this movie really probably more than Interstellar.
I was not also the biggest fan of Interstellar, but I still think it was better because I think the visuals of that one were just so amazing.
Yeah.
That makes up for a lot of it, I think.
And I mean, a lot of like his movies are going to be very hit or miss because they're very theoretical because a lot of them have to do with like time.
Yeah, he has a very overarching theme with a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
Very, it's a Christopher Nolan movie by the
Yeah.
music, that Hans Zimmer music, that
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. And it's always got to be some elaborate fight scene that has to do with some super elaborate artistic. You have to be a genius to understand it, see how smart I am. And not as much in the Batman ones, but I haven't
Eh,
seen some of the other ones. This one seemed too complicated. Inception, I got it. Kind of even in the first watch, I'm like, okay, I get this. Interstellar, I'm like, you're oversimplifying it. And then
I
this one, they're like trying to explain it a lot, and it's still just like,
actually now that like I'm thinking about it, you know what this movie kind of lines up with that I think more of what you were saying, more than like James Bond or anything. I
what's that?
think the first Iron Man, it lines up a lot with.
How?
I don't know. It's just like it seems like the way the plot goes and like who like they're going against, like it's a smart, brilliant guy versus an arms dealer fighting for like technology that is cutting edge and
But
like
the but
out
the
of this world.
protagonist isn't like super smart. He's constantly having to be explained.
He's not, yeah, but like he's not like he's
He's
not an
James Bond.
expert. Yeah, he's not an expert in what he does, but he's an expert in how he carries out his things.
Well, he's actually not James Bond because in a lot of the James Bond movies, he just happens to know everything about everything. Um, I just it the action is amazing. Bar none. It's great as always.
And
S
you didn't like when they were like you were like, oh my god, jaw drop whenever he was like fighting himself and stuff like that.
I mean, the first time you watch it, they don't. I guess they just don't show his. I maybe I'll have to watch it in a rewatch to know. Go back to the beginning fight when he's fighting himself because the first time you don't see his eyes. I couldn't tell that the dude was. You couldn't tell what he was. It was like he
Yeah,
was
it's on
so covered up.
purpose.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't remember. I don't know if they do it, but in the second one they show his eyes a bunch, and you can
Yeah.
clearly tell it's him. So I feel like he would see because you see a lot of his face through that mask. That the protagonist would be like, "Oh shit, I am fighting myself. That is me," but he never does. Um, I wasn't jaw drop of it because as soon as I started getting the inversion thing, I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." And for some reason, Robert Pattinson's in on it the whole time, is just going along with it, which is kind
Because
of
he's
weird.
from the future.
He might be, but my whole issue with it, the action's great. Cinematography is beautiful. Overall, I just was not a big fan of the acting.
Damn. I mean, I
I
could
th
bring in my Tenet expert. He's probably seen this movie 60 times.
yeah, but okay, well, I just thought the acting wasn't that great. It's like honestly was my biggest issue.
I don't
Kenneth
think, yeah, I wouldn't doubt, I wouldn't disagree there.
and it's some Christopher Nolan things is I know it's very divisive and I might lean towards I'm not as big of a fan of it. I just don't see myself wanting to rewatch this one. You know, like Christopher Nolan, he has to be kind of hit or miss because he does it so overly complicated. You're going to alienate a lot of people that aren't geniuses. You
Yeah.
can't, I mean, this stuff will never exist. I don't think anyone's going to invent inverting and how this stuff works going against the grain, at least not in my lifetime, hopefully. Um, So it's like this one's just too much, and they do a lot of exposition where they're just kind of standing there blandly talking about it. And every time, like the main actor, he's like on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is one of Chris Nolan's favorite movies. To me, he's very wooden in his delivery. There's like no ups and downs. There's no like facial expressions. He's just kind of like, I need to know this. What do you know
Yeah.
about this? And then Kat, she's kind of just there, like he's horrible. He's the worst. I want to kill him.
I used to love him so much when we were first arms dealers together.
Yes, I used to love him, and then he stopped with his mistress, who ends up the mistress she thought was herself
Yo.
when you find out at the end. And he's taking my son away from me. Well, he's got all the money. I mean, he could do what he wants. I mean,
Oh.
it's rude, it's wrong, but and Robert Pattinson, who's an amazing actor, has put in some great performances as of late. I think he's pretty wood. He's just kind of like deadpanned. I mean, I feel like out of the main actors does the best. Kenneth Branagh just doesn't play convincing Russian. He looks very English.
Oh yeah.
And is when he gets mad, it's just like it's not believable. And when she's like, "Oh, that Fitbit on his arm, he's overly obsessed with his health." Bullshit. The dude looks he doesn't look in shape. He's lumbering around, can't do anything. And I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I say what do you give the movie?
If I would say in between, I could go in between a 3 and a 3.5
Okay, I say that's fair.
because I mean, it could grow. I'm leaning more a little bit towards 3 because I think it's overly complicated in the acting, but I mean, the action and cinematography alone brings it up to a different level. But I feel like a lot of the action I've seen before, so it's nothing like brand new, like in The Dark Knight Rises when the planes flipped upside down type thing, or the no Heath Ledger type performance, or Matthew McConaughey performance, or Leo, Tom Hardy. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's in the lower echelon. What about you?
I'd say I give it like a 4.5.
4, 4.5.
But it's a movie I've rewatched a lot.
Okay, that's true. Okay, I can get that. I disagree, as
Yeah.
we can always do. But of them, how many Chris Nolan movies have you seen? Have you seen Memento?
Yes.
Okay, you've seen.
I think I've seen close to all of them.
I was gonna say if we watch them all, but I still I have not seen Memento. And then there's also what is that movie, The Illusionist with is it Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman? He did that one, right? That magic movie.
Let's see. You are thinking of
I forget what it's called, but I'm pretty sure it's him. The Illusionist, where it's like Christian Bale is a twin brother and faking the magic, and there's a rivalry between him and Hugh Jackman.
between him and. Hugh Jackman. Transcendence.
No, 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 no. Let me look this up real quick. Christian Bale.
The
The
Prestige.
Prestige. Isn't that him?
That
Christopher
is
Nolan?
him. Yeah. I'm looking through. I've seen Oppenheimer, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Inception, Dunkirk, Tenet, Memento, Dark Knight, Batman, Man of Steel, uh
He didn't do Man of Steel.
yeah, he did.
He did not do Superman movie.
It literally said wait, why is that pop up on his filmography when he didn't direct it?
I
Yeah,
had,
this is a Schneider movie, yeah.
yeah, that was Zack Snyder. I was like, he would have made a better.
'Cause I was looking at his
Oh,
filmography
he
and
did the story. He wrote the story.
okay.
But okay.
Uh Insomnia I've seen.
Oh, that's right, Insomnia. I haven't seen that one, but I've heard about it. Where do you rank this? Is this upper tier Nolan? Or
Um
is this
I'd
middle of the
probably
pack?
I'd
Lower?
probably put Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, Inception, Tenet, Interstellar. Out of the ones I most know, I'd have to I've not seen Memento in them in a while, so I'd have to rewatch them. Out of those are the most recent ones I've watched. I feel like I would rate it. It'd be a middle of the pack movie.
So far for me, it would be towards the end because I feel like Interstellar is a great movie, but I think it has a lot of plot issues. This one I feel like is slightly below it because I just don't think the acting is as good in this one. Then Dark Knight Rises would probably be above Tenet, below Interstellar. Then it probably goes Batman Begins, Inception, Dark Knight of the ones I have seen.
I see.
But that's my whole thing with Chris Nolan in general though. Is he's not a Steven Spielberg. He's not a Scorsese. But he could have a chance to get there because he kind of very stereotypical, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very easy beats in everyone, doesn't spring out a lot. He's not a Kubrick or anything. But any final thoughts on the movie?
No, I thought it was good, and excited to see what you pick next.
I will have to send you some ones because I know you've probably seen a lot more movies than me. But I
Yeah.
think that is the episode for this week, everybody.
No.
If y'all want to watch Tenet and be confused, go out and watch it.
Adios.
Adios, amigos.